The following quotations therefrom will serve to disclose his general thought on the subject. This is by Emerson. Always, I believe, by the necessity of our constitution, a certain enthusiasm attends the individual consciousness of that divine presence. The character and duration of this enthusiasm varies with the state of the individual, from an ecstasy and trance and prophetic inspiration, which is its rarer appearance, to the faintest glow of virtuous emotion, in which form it warms, like our household fires, all the families and associations of men, and makes society possible. A certain tendency to insanity has always attended the opening of the religious sense of men, as if blasted with excess of light. The trances of Socrates, the union of Plotinus, the vision of Porphyry, the conversion of Paul, the aurora of Behem, the convulsions of George Fox and his Quakers, the illumination of Swedenborg are of this kind. What was in the case of these remarkable persons a ravishment has in innumerable instances in common life been exhibited in a less striking manner. Everywhere the history of religion betrays a tendency to enthusiasm. The rapture of the Moravian and Quietist, the opening of the internal sense of the word in the language of the New Jerusalem Church, the revival of the Calvinistic churches, the experiences of the Methodists, are varying forms of that shudder of awe and delight with which the individual soul always mingles with the universal soul. The nature of these revelations is always the same. They are perceptions of the absolute law. They are solutions of the soul's own questions. The soul answers never by words, but by the thing itself that is inquired for. We live in succession, in division, in parts, in particles. Meantime, within man is the soul of the whole, the wise, silent, the universal beauty to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one. And this deep power in which we exist, and whose beatitude is all accessible to us, is not only self-sufficing and perfect in every hour, but the act of seeing and the thing seen, the seer and the spectacle, the subject and the object are one. We see the world piece by piece, as the sun and moon, the animal, the tree, but the whole of which these are the shining parts is the soul. It is only by the vision of that wisdom that the horoscope of the ages can be read, and it is only by falling back on our better thoughts, by yielding to the spirit of prophecy, which is innate in every man, that we can know what it saith. Every man's words who speaks from that life must sound vain to those who do not dwell in the same thought on their own part. I dare not speak for it. My words do not carry its august sense. They fall short and cold. Only itself can inspire whom it will, and behold, their speech shall be lyrical and sweet and universal as the rising of the wind. Yes, yet I desire, even by profane words, if sacred I may not use, to indicate the heaven of this deity, and to report what hints I have collected of the transcendent simplicity and energy of the highest law. So such are the general reports of the nature and character of these glimpses of the universal consciousness, which men here and there have experienced in all time. Let us now consider the powers kindled in those to whom glimpses, or more, of this consciousness has come. For an increase in knowing always brings with it an increase in power, according to the law of cause and effect. In the first place, the possession by an individual, or even a faint dawn of this universal consciousness, by whatever name it may be known, endows him with certain in touchness with all the rest of life. By a subtle intuition he may, under favorable circumstances, speak, write, paint, act, or produce music representing phase of vital mental and emotional activity transcending any actual experience on his own part. Such an individual becomes in rapport with or in tune with the manifold variety of living forms and is able to produce a representation thereof through his own expression. This is the secret of the genius of great artists, writers, musicians, poets, and others, who express through their own respective mediums or vehicles the messages they receive from the other forms of life with which they are connected by subtle filaments of unity. Such a one can enter into, in imagination, the life experience of any and all forms of life, and to then represent them in visible and audible form in a degree depending upon their own development. Moreover, such individuals are universal in their sympathies and can feel with any form of life with which they come in contact. And as a consequence of the latter, they tend to inspire in other persons and living creatures a liking, fellowship, and understanding. Many of the great illumined souls of the race, having this consciousness in at least some degree, find themselves at home with all manners and conditions of mankind, and in many cases with the lower life forms as well. Sympathy has been defined as a fellow feeling, and it may be seen as at once that when one has a feeling of fellowship with all life, and such individuals have this to some degree, then there are created certain bonds and links of sympathy and unity which serve to unite the individual more or less strongly to all living things. In the case of the great teachers of the race, such as the founders of the great religions and similar souls, we find that universal sympathy with and understanding of all life, which sets such individuals apart as marked and distinguished men, and imparts to them a universality which makes them citizens of all countries and dwellers of all times. Again, we find that in the case of many individuals of this type there exists a certain power of attraction for other forms of life and things, which enables them to attract to themselves those conditions, environments, and persons best adapted to their well-being and happiness, and which also gives them certain so-called miraculous powers over nature. He who is consciously identical with nature is able to work miracles with nature. We cannot go deeper into this subject at this time and place for several very good reasons, but the above is a strong hint to those who are prepared to hear and understand the truth concerning certain phases of life and nature. What we have said so far in our consideration of the individuals manifesting flashes or glimpses of this plane of consciousness applies in a much greater degree to those who have penetrated fully into the higher subplanes of this great plane of consciousness. On this planet and on others dwell beings so fully awakened and unfolded in this phase of consciousness that they are supernatural beings to the ordinary human being. Many of such beings are performing important offices in the unfoldment of the race and the betterment of mankind. Many of these people have been regarded as angels or demigods by ordinary people with whom they have come in contact in the past, and many of them are the invisible helpers of whose presence many of the race have been made aware by actual experience. Many of the white magicians of the race belong to the higher phases of this great plane of consciousness. And alas, some who are what is known as black magicians have managed to break into the kingdom of heaven on these planes and have prostituted their power. But to such inevitably comes punishment by nature herself, and are either forced into the legions of light or else are disintegrated and destroyed by the forces of nature which they have set into operation for selfish and bad evil purposes. And I will begin the plane of the consciousness of the gods in the next video.